welcome to the Pulse Collective podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the PCP, otherwise known as the Pulse Collective podcast. This is the show where we sit down with entrepreneurs, founders from all across every walk of life when it comes to business. And we'll talk about everything from sales, marketing, operations, and really everything in between to uncover different strategies that you might be able to help implement into your businesses as well. I'm your host, Shahrukh Ansari. For those of you that are just watching or just joining the family as well, we are Pulse Collective. So we are a growth partner that focuses on helping businesses all across, whether you're in Canada or the United States. We'll help you multiply your revenue and also unlock the actual potential you have within your business through AI-powered systems. So if you're actually looking for proven ways and not just some wishy-washy stuff to attract more clients and also just boost your overall customer experience, you're here in the right place. So drop us a message down below and I'll actually have one of our consultants reach out to you personally and maybe see if there's a potential match to work together. Now, today I'm really excited because I'm actually joined by Jordan Levy. Levi, you'll have to correct me if I'm getting your last name correct, but he's the co-founder and CEO of CapSource, which is a very cool experiential learning platform that connects universities and employers to deliver real-world project-based experiences for students at scale. Jordan actually brings a really unique perspective, which is why I'm excited about this episode, because in the education and workforce development place, he's actually helped build technology and bridge that gap between classroom learning and actual practical industry application. And now they're increasingly also leveraging AI to help streamline those connections as well. So for a lot of you younger guys as well, younger girls that might be watching this, school, you get out of it. You don't really get that practical experience. That's why I'm really excited to dive into this today. So Jordan, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you on. Can you just kind of kick us off by giving a little bit about your background and also, if I missed anything, what CapSource is all?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's great to be with you. So we got into this work a little over 10 years ago now. There's really just not enough opportunities for students out there to figure out what they want to do. And so um, there's um, there's some really exciting internship programs out there, but they're far and few between. So if you're not like a rising senior with really good grades at a good school, the likelihood that you're getting a career aligned experience as an internship, especially a paid internship, is extremely unlikely. There's about 1 million in the US and a couple 100,000 in Canada. Between both, it's not really a sustainable system. And our whole hypothesis is companies really want to work with next gen talent. They have deep interest and curiosity about what the next generation is thinking, what tools they're working with, how they're going to ultimately become consumers and managers of big brands. And the question is, how do you make it sustainable? And our whole hypothesis is get the schools involved. Why not have schools offer these experiences as part of courses, as part of clubs and organizations, as special summer experiences that are accredited and co-curricular. So CapSource is really a platform and a partner to bring industry organizations to the table and help organize meaningful, beneficial collaborations. So, there's lots of different methods. You could do co-ops and internships, which are, one or a few students. Capstones are a traditional kind of use case, especially in engineering, where students work on a semester or 2 semester long project. And then you have all sorts of other creative ways where you're doing like case competitions and live cases for classes or programs to really apply, what they're learning, work together, compete with each other, come up with the best insights for companies. So over the 10 years that we've been around, we've reached hundreds of schools and thousands of industry partners to create collaborations that otherwise just wouldn't exist. So our whole claim to fame is we're helping students build their resume, whereas these organizations otherwise wouldn't be offering these opportunities. And I think it's a really special way to connect with the next generation and help really ultimately align them with what they're going to be most productive and happy doing in their careers. I think the greatest, good deed that you could do is finding someone, their partner for life, in marriage, they have kids. I think the next best is figuring out how to help inspire someone to find a career, find something they're passionate about, live a fulfilled life and earn for their family. And so We've had so many examples of doing that over the course of our history, and our KPI is to grow that exponentially over the next decade.
No, absolutely. I find it really, really cool. As a graduate in the last 10 years, I think like the biggest obstacle, especially after the pandemic, I think the biggest frustration with younger people was that opportunities were kind of there, but they weren't actually there for people. So people would post, like companies were posting job postings, but 95% of the time they weren't actually looking to hire externally to begin with. They were actually just filling those positions internally. And I've seen people like just personal connections of mine where people have really successful, really, really good degrees, but they didn't have the practical experience. So they were just mass applying to different places. And it became one of those things where animosity starts building between a potential employee and employers with how their hiring processes work. So I actually feel like what you guys are doing is cool because you built this bridge between both sides actually communicating together and bringing those people together. So I actually want to dive into that a little bit more. But before I do, I wanted to talk about you personally and before we can talk about the business, but just you personally, Jordan, like as the founder and the person, the visionary behind kind of like what brought everything together. What was your journey like? Because I'm sure there was something that you came across along the way that got you to be like, this is something that I need to do, like at some point.
So I was, a very attentive student. I went to a great school, Lehigh University, which is like an hour and a half from New York City, 45 minutes from Philly. So we had a lot of attention from employers. We had a lot of career fairs and things along those lines. I got a full-time job lined up from sophomore year, basically. I mean, I got recruited to KPMG as a pre-intern. They called it an externship, then did a full-time internship, and then I got a full-time job offer, which, is every mother's dream of their college age son or daughter. So I didn't realize that I didn't want to do public accounting, or even I actually my full-time job was in transactions and restructuring to do work in their like M&A division advisory services. And, what I thought was gonna be so cool, I just like it was just the culture of the firm, the size of the firm, the type of work I was doing, it wasn't a good fit for me. I'm very creative, I'm very entrepreneurial, and, I probably should have been networking with smaller businesses and trying to learn more about the startup world and figuring out how to be a more, um, well-equipped entrepreneur. And unfortunately, because of the way that the school is set up, they didn't educate us that way. And so even being like top of the class, very good student, close with my faculty, I just didn't feel prepared for my career at all. And I was like, wow, if that happened to me, I wonder how it's happening to students that are a lot less present with their, career planning process. And so it got me thinking, I was actually in an entrepreneurship class, so I was trying to figure out, what to focus on for the class. I wanted to get a good grade. All the professor cared about is like make progress on your business every single class session. So started working on this idea where basically, we were trying to introduce companies to the learning experience, based on what we felt was missing from the academic experience we were getting. And so my professor was like, well, go talk to the business school teachers that you have and see if anybody's willing to like pilot it. And like within a week, we found two professors that were like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do it. And we're like, what? This is awesome. Like we were literally students leading class. And so to me, that was like, one like indicator of interest, one after another. We had one professor I remember told me, I asked, why don't you think there's more industry involved in the curriculum that we're studying? Said, well, you can't buy it off the shelf like a textbook. I was like, well, what if you can? What if you can get real world case studies and projects and mentoring and guest lectures that are really aligned, that help students align their expectations, that help students understand nuances of industry, nuances of job location, size, organization size, culture. Like it's just like this big opaque transition between, the structured environment of school and then the extremely unstructured environment of industry, which is essentially like dog eat dog, got to figure it out, got to hustle, got to connect, got to grow. And I
Right.
think like there's so many opportunities to make better connections there. So, after, you know, I punted my start date by 6 months, raised a couple $1 million for my first business, and then was like, okay, let's start building. And, one of the things that I knew I liked, but I didn't know that I loved and had passion and creativity and effectiveness with was actually building the software. So I'm not an engineer, but to be a product designer, to inspire the team, to build a team, to organize a product that would help us distribute case studies, organize projects. You have to create profiles for partners and like just build an ecosystem like that. Like it came so to me so naturally. And
Yeah.
so I didn't even, I mean, I didn't do any interface at all with this computer science program or the software design and creative students. So like, I just felt like, we're basically learned a bunch of business terminology, but we had very little opportunity to apply it to real world scenarios. And I was like, let's make it so that you could buy that off the shelf for students. And so now across my career, I'm almost at 50,000 students that can add something to their resume or make a point in a job interview that basically can say, yeah, I have this experience. You could talk to this organization and look at this artifact that shows how effective I am. And that to me is like creating that out of thin air is like what gets me excited to wake up every morning and deal with my kids, and then an extremely full day of messy schedule and crazy task switching as a CEO, and risk calculations and all sorts of things. And then boom, back to being able to have that flexibility to be, a father and family man. So I love being an entrepreneur. I've obviously done it my whole career, and, we aspire to just to keep growing what we're doing and keeping that mission and vision top of mind, like, really helps to keep that enthusiasm renewed every day, every year.
Yeah. No, honestly, like you took a really interesting approach because your founding of like your thought process started when you were actually still a student. So these things were kind of playing in the back of your mind. Like it's funny because most of the people I actually speak with, their founding story typically starts early on when they were actually in the role of the person that they wanted to eventually help. So for example, I literally just had an episode where I recorded right now where it's a sales tool, but the guy was a seller. He hated his job every single day of how he was selling. And he decided ultimately, like, there needs to be a tool that makes our life easier. So I think for a lot of people, especially younger entrepreneurs that might be watching this, like the big key takeaway here as well, just when you're starting your founding story, is put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're looking to help. And that is going to be the best takeaway because Jordan's built a business on this, and I've seen countless of other entrepreneurs that we've spoken with that have done the same. Now, what I do want to dive into a little bit is two sections are going to be a little bit focused on the industry as a whole. Because, of course, I'm not really as involved with the education space as much as you might be. So I'm curious to hear if you have some info or some insights that you can share. It's more specifically about, I always get people telling me, employers are, I kind of touched on it earlier, but employers are not really like being transparent, I guess is the best way to put it, with like what they're actually looking for and what they're offering. So employees and actual students in their earlier careers, they go through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 interviews before eventually getting a no or whatever the case may be. What are those shifts right now in higher education, especially now that you've created this bridge and like you're seeing these things? What are the shifts that you're seeing in higher education and also employer engagement right now? Like, what are those key things that you would say are changing and that they're looking for?
So from the career side, what employers are changing their perspective?
Exactly. Like, what are they looking for in like talent now compared to what it may have been when you first started?
Honestly, I think the most obvious one that is kind of crazy on the scene is AI literacy. Experiential learning framework that we designed, which is based off of the NACE, which is the National Association for Collegiate Employers. It's basically an association for organizations that like regularly recruit from institutions. Because it's a little different, right? A lot of SMBs, they can't afford to train young
Yeah.
talent, so they end up hiring lateral talent and then providing either better benefits, more growth opportunity, more leadership, or potentially just more flexibility than a larger firm. So it's an interesting environment because you either have really, exciting SMBs that are like, hey, we're not going to survive long term without engaging with next gen professionals, or much larger corporates that are like really focused on trying to recruit a large bottom up talent funnel. So, I'm one of the things I'll say before we even get into this is, there's this famous study that looked at the Fortune 500 companies between 1950 and 2000, and effectively like 90% of them evaporated. And the crazy thing is like, of course, the powerhouses of, that made it through that last 10%, are ones that you would always, kind of remember, the GEs of the world, the Fords, but really like the rest of these companies, they failed. And like the question is why? And it's because they're not in touch with the next generation. So there's a really clear reason why industry, regardless of size, should always be re-engaging with the next generation to level set like who like what are they thinking and doing? Like obviously to work with middle school and high school students is a lot more of a chore than to work with, college and emerging young professionals who,
Right.
have a little bit more of a sense of what they want to do, how they can add value. So there really is a lot of value for the company side, but what they're looking for are really like a mix of soft and technical skills, right? So obviously I mentioned AI, that would be under digital fluency, which is one of the NACE 8 career competencies. So some of the other ones are like communication, career management, cultural fluency, so understanding different cultures and working across teams with different time zones, languages,
Right.
accents, etc. So there's 8 of them in total, but I think in general what's now the most prevalent, because, effectively you can, I mean, look at McKinsey and Deloitte, like shedding employees, Amazon
Yeah.
shedding employees because of the effectiveness of one person with AI as opposed to what used to require teams of people.
Teams.
So I think that's the bleeding edge requirement, is that digital fluency now requires a significant amount of digital effectiveness within the world of AI. And then, otherwise, you still have to work in teams. You have to be able to communicate with each other. You have to be able to coach each other, ask for feedback, all of the regular kind of soft skills. But I think they're all secondary to, can this employee be effectively 100 of someone from 2010? And if you can, now you have a serious pathway towards prosperous career pursuit. Because otherwise, I mean, there's a renaissance going on of a lot of existing career professionals that just aren't upskilling, haven't upskilled, and it's
Yeah.
really hard for them to actually get the promotions when someone who is next generation has enough trainability to understand the industry and business model, and much more effective use of technology means that they could be a much more effective employee than a mid-level. So it's in some ways changing the entire dichotomy of recruiting, because you want those next generation professionals, but then you also, you want to retain those who have the most knowledge and experience within your organization and retrain them on how to use AI. So there's kind of this like, these two competing priorities, but for sure organizations are becoming more lean because they're able to leverage software subscriptions to AI, AI tools that
Yeah.
will make a single employee much more effective.
I think employees nowadays we've come into the workforce, in my opinion. I know it's the most competitive time probably, but I think it's also the most fun time if you're coming in, because AI is genuinely, I'm a strong believer that it has created a lot of brand new opportunities, and it's actually bridged the skill gap a lot from before. So people that actually previously had to go to school for like computer science degrees or actually be very, very technical and in the weeds with like coding. Now there's no code platforms that you can build a website from, or you can like just do whatever. And it's readily accessible. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we have here as well. I'm curious now, just from a top lens, that you as a CEO at CapSource, how are you guys currently managing this AI wave? Like compared to when you first started, are you looking at ways to incorporate it when it comes to implementing new programs that you're offering the students that are already like registered? Are you looking at incorporating it when it comes to bringing on new potential employers that you're partnering with? Like, what are the ways that you see? And if you are using it, like, how are you using it? I guess.
So, I mean, I think every organization is pretty similar in this way, but like pretty much now it starts with like what are the objectives and how do we use AI to make that an efficient project for us. It used to be like what teams and what tools and how do we get the information and then use that to make a presentation and make a decision. And like now all of that happens so quickly that I think that it's kind of like changed. It's funny. My wife works for Ernst and Young, one of the biggest
Big
competitors of
four.
where I started my career at KPMG, and they're still slowly implementing AI because it poses a lot of risk to their model, right? Like at the end of the day, they're consultants, and if you are just paying someone to use AI, you might as well pay them internally and use. So it has to be done in a very meticulous way. But at the end of the day, I think that they're not using it as aggressively, which means their talent is going to lag behind other talent who is, right? So I think like, your effectiveness of using different tools within ChatGPT, using different AI tools across the spectrum of what's available, understanding how to leverage different pieces to bring projects together across your team. I think like all of these things are like now becoming like so paramount to processing a project where it's like it's kind of funny. I host these like personal events all the time. Like starting to get to the point where it's very hard for me to think about even doing anything that I had ever done, whether it's personal, gardening, I make bolo ties, for my friends in Arizona or host events like cooking classes at our house. Like all of that stuff I had done last year with AI, and now I have a bunch of my own experience. I update the AI on what I did. It gives me a brief overview of what I did, how to make it better, how to make it more efficient, more cost efficient, whatever. So it's like all of this stuff is like now AI integrated, which otherwise this used to be all analog. How you make an agenda for the cooking class,
It's to take
how you
hours.
so it's like I'm starting to phase out of my even recent mindset. I call it the BAI mindset, but like I literally can't even remember. I was like, was that the last time I did that BAI? Like, no, like honestly, at this point, almost everything that I do, I have a reference point to a time that was after AI. And this is just, we've been using decision making tools, right, for a long time, organization tools, decision making tools. But agentic AI is a completely different tool set. And so it's just funny where the adoption curve is pretty significant, but it's nowhere near pervasive technology yet. And so it's just like
Yeah.
apples and oranges. If you're not using it, it's so obvious that you're not going to be as productive. So yeah, I think that's just kind of my 2 cents is that there is no world before AI anymore. It's like we have to move forward where this is like either you're a leader in it or you're a lagger in it,
You're getting
period.
left behind. That's what it is. Like I tell our clients the same thing. Like you just have to kind of, even though it's scary at first, because security is a big part of it as well. Like of course, if you're playing with customer information or data or whatever the case may be, there is a little bit of hesitation. Like you actually brought up, it's funny when you said your wife works at Ernest and Young, and you earlier on were working at Deloitte. I don't know if you saw the report at the end of, I think it was at the end of last year, November, December, where Deloitte got flagged for building like an fully AI report for, I think it was the Canadian government, like for the provincial government or something. And it became a whole thing. I think it was like $1 million report that they were actually tasked to put together. Everything was fully done through AI. So it's just funny how even though AI can help, I think there is that fine line, like what you just said, where you can't do that. Like people still pay for that human touch to whatever it is. Like otherwise you could just do everything yourself. So I thought that was pretty funny that you brought that up.
Yeah, it was Australian government. That
Oh,
it
was
was,
it?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why these consulting businesses are extremely, well, it's interesting because in a lot of ways, the consulting firms, the big four, their consulting practices are really staff augmentation. But the consulting firms, the McKinsey, BCG, Bain, their businesses are really at risk because what you used to take to a really top brass consulting firm, you can now take to your team with AI or a bunch of students with AI. I mean, that's what we do. And now instead of getting the quality of a student outcome, you're getting the quality of a student who's learning how to use AI and likely can use it better than a large majority of those
Yep.
at these big consulting firms because they've been toying around with it for years. So it's a renaissance for sure. You've seen similar adoption curves when the internet, started. It was like
Oh, yeah.
trickled and then boom, it became pervasive. And it's interesting because Google's entire business is in jeopardy if they don't figure out how to be a top contender. And so now, like pretty much whenever you Google search something, it shows an AI summary and then
Gemini.
traditional search, you know, responses. And it's just, you know, I find they're still not near the quality that you could get from other big AI providers. But still, like that's only a matter of time until like it's just like that type of information. And like there's all these new, interesting ways that companies are trying to figure out how to optimize within AI. So how do you become the suggested vendor for AI? We're redoing our kitchen. We needed to buy a new fridge, a new dishwasher. I did that whole process using AI. And so like getting getting AI to suggest that your product is the best as opposed to consumer reports and other human driven review organizations, that's a huge difference in how people's consumer habits are changing and will change drastically in the future. Because it's no
Yeah.
longer about SEO, it's about optimizing to be the vendor of choice based on quality and the prompts that people are putting in. So that's a whole new field.
Yep.
Whereas, it's funny, my wife and I, we have young kids. We put on my favorite kids show movie from when I was younger was The Land Before Time. And when the credits roll in, the original one was like 1988. If you look at the credits, there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that are involved in illustrations and animations and voice. All of this stuff can now be done with one person and an AI tool, right? So it's like,
It's crazy.
there's a different world. And so like these students are graduating from school into this new world and thinking about where's this world going to be in 20 years? Because a lot of Gen X and the boomers, I mean, I work on boards where the entire organization the board and the org is Xers and boomers. And like for me, it's like banging my head against the wall sometimes because they like look at the AI transcript of what was discussed and they're like, well, that's not exactly what happened. I'm like, yes, it is. And not only that, but like that's not even the point. The point is like how do you turn this into action items and assign
Yep.
it to people and then iterate things and put them into shared drive and like just move faster. I just think that it's hard. A boomer's not thinking about what the world's going to look like in 20 years or what their community is going to look like. And Xers are basically like in the middle to end of their careers at this point, kind of thinking the same thing. It's like, I'm not trying to learn this whole new tool. I'm just going to try and be as valuable with my experience and connections as I can. Gen Z and soon Gen A, they don't have that opportunity. That ship has sailed. So like basically if that fluency is not a clear line item on your resume as a next generation working professional, you're going to be out. I mean, it's literally students using AI to apply for jobs and AI screening candidates for jobs. So you just have this like constant AI process
Yeah.
that is, it's people writing contracts with AI and people reviewing contracts with AI. So it's like, yeah, You still need lawyers? Of course. But these are like all of this nuance that
Yeah.
used to go back and forth between 5 people and take 10 business days now can be done in an hour in the afternoon. And if ChatGPT actually gets their servers together so that it can respond without timing out, maybe we would all be using it like 50 times a day in 20 different tabs. Right now, you can only like really work on one project at a time, which drives me insane. Like I'd rather have 15 things
Yeah.
going, go take a break, go eat
Yeah.
lunch.
I think it's funny. You touch on like a lot, but I think the funny thing with Google, it's actually Google historically was always experiencing an uptick in the amount of search volume that it was getting like on a quarter to quarter basis. It was constantly just increasing. It wasn't until I believe the first or second quarter of 2025 that there started to be a decline in terms of how many people were actually using Google for search. So what you just said right now, I think that's a very key takeaway actually from this conversation is people are now using AI as their new primary for searching. So whether that's Gemini, whether that's ChatGPT, whether that's Perplexity, whatever the case may be, you're finding your sources from those things now. And I think honestly, like even me, when I went on my trip recently, I didn't want to have to search for like a full itinerary. I don't want to have to put everything together. So I literally just went on to GPT one day. I was like, build me like a 7-day itinerary. I don't have to think about it. Does all the research work for you. And like, I think that's the point that we're at now. So it's just really funny to think about uh, the way how everything is changing. And one thing I do want to talk about though is the biggest lever I think that AI, what it's doing is it's helping businesses scale more efficiently than before. Because previously, what would have to happen is you're running a business, it's successful, but now in order to scale, you need to hire more people. You need to assign certain tasks to certain types of people, whatever it is. And now you're increasing your costs, but you are going to have to scale the volume of how wide you can actually operate. Now what it's doing is even people that don't have a full team, they have 1 or 2 people, they're running leaner teams, they can scale. I've seen people scaling to 50, $100,000 months and beyond just off of like 2, 3 person teams. So I'm curious about your perspective now. If we step back, let's look at CapSource as a company and where you see yourself 5 years from now and by 2030, if we had to say, leveraging AI, like what is I guess like when it comes to actually getting more students, getting new employers onto like partnering with them, how do you do that process right now? And how do you see that evolving over the next few years? Because I feel like you guys are already doing a lot of things currently.
So the biggest value that our schools find in our platform is the partners that we bring in. And so I think that's really the next area that we're going to try and innovate greatly with AI. So how you track partners, how you interact with those partners, how you onboard them for new programs, how you re-engage them and expand partnerships with them. All of those tools probably within the next, I'm hoping after this year, that will be our priority because I know that that's a large area where we add the most value to schools. Because really it's hard, right? At the end of the day, like companies don't want a relationship with one school. They want a relationship with many. They want to get diverse talent.
Right.
Schools have forever kind of held their contacts close to the chest, but like that model doesn't work in today's like very interconnected digital global world. We're trying to convince them, hey, you could still have your hot contacts, your alumni network, but like let us diversify what you can access and how you manage them and so on and so forth. So I think that's like the first thing. Right now, what we're already doing, and what I can't wait to see how it comes to fruition as part of our product is like we're no longer developing without AI integrated directly into our experience. So we used to kind of build tools. Now we're building AI powered tools. It's essentially as opposed to having students like work on something, take it to AI and bring it back into that's not going to happen anymore. We want agentic AI chatbot to be there to help you. We want our time and task tracking tool, which effectively like helps students figure out what their priorities should be for projects. We want that to be AI integrated where you
Right.
essentially have a coach and we're actually taking some of the burden off of faculty who were used to be responsible for doing that. And now saying faculty, you're supervising students as they use this AI powered learning platform that helps them figure out what do I need to do to get up to speed to deliver value based on the scope and the timeline? And if I'm not progressing, the AI is going to inform my educator and me that I need to be prioritizing these things, or else, the chances of you being able to accomplish the scope is very limited. So that's the kind of stuff that we're currently working on. And then what we had been working on basically over the last year is so we have 3 tools that we use to coordinate engagements between companies and students, industry professionals and students. The most prevalent one is our project-based learning, which is basically, I'm going to work on a project for you. This goal used to take our team like days and learning designers and conversations to scope something out that would be a good fit for students. Now we have all the program requirements. All we need is a company's website and 1-sentence goal, and we could turn it into an entire curricular project plan for students. So how do we scope those projects? We also have this case study tool, which essentially is like a mass market version of projects. Hey, anybody can work on this. It's open innovation. Go learn about the types of challenges that this organization or that organization is dealing with. That could be developed all with AI. We have a new mentoring approach. So that's the 3rd tool. So projects, cases, and then mentoring. It used to be like we were using like carefully designed templates by an instructional design team. Now all of that is created based on tags and goals that mentees have as they request mentorship from mentors. So that's kind of like our approach now is like all of our tools, everything that we're building. It's okay, where does AI fit into this? And how do we develop our platform with an API that's going to ultimately give students that build essentially it's almost designed to be more value added than if you took the information out of the platform and worked on it elsewhere. We want to have them where working in the platform is going to be the most valuable. And then that's basically kind of how we are seeing like our next 5-year horizon is like everything that we do. However, we're trying to add value, AI is right there. Here's the content you need. Here's the suggestion on what to do next. Here's what we think you could improve on. Here's on the feedback. Here's some perspective based on the feedback you just got from your industry mentor or your educator mentor. So it's basically like instead of because right now basically the most inefficient thing with AI is that you have to take a screenshot or copy long forms of text and paste it into an AI. And then give it context. But if the context is built into the AI, and now you're flying, you're literally teaching students how to fly through projects.
I think it also like to your point though, like I don't mean to cut you, but like I'm trying to get this down. Like people who are using AI for the way that you guys are, even your students will maximize the value, and you're actually creating a product where in your case, I don't think churn is really as big of an issue, but for people like businesses, when you're leveraging AI this way, people are actually finding out how they can maximize their investment or maximize their time with you by leveraging AI to find out what you guys are actually capable of doing. I've seen countless times where people have churned from 1 or 2 of our clients because they didn't have something in place, and they actually went to a different company to solve a problem that the company they were originally partnered with already does, but they had no idea they do it. So it's one of those things where you get value all around. I know we're coming up to the end of our time here, Jordan. So I want to quickly like throw a couple rapid fire questions your way and have a little bit more fun, not just keep it business related. So let's tie everything together. Now, this is kind of our case. This is like our little role play type of question I like to ask people. So you wake up tomorrow morning, I don't know if you're a Harry Potter fan, but if you wake up tomorrow morning, you're Harry Potter and you got given a magic wand and somebody told you, Jordan, you get to take this magic wand and fix something either within your business or within the industry that you're in. So experiential learning. What would that one thing be right now that's kind of like top of mind for you?
I would say that, I think what I'd love to improve is our ability to, the whole thing is like the reason why it doesn't scale for schools is because it's very manually intensive to coordinate all of these projects and collaborations between students and different programs and different schools with different companies. And so I would love to wave a magic wand that, ultimately help like through all sorts of automations and systems and improvements that, we could basically do a million, right? So like it's been like 50,000 over my career. And like, I think AI is like partially that wand, but still
Yeah.
even like you need a ton of resources to figure out how to use it, how to build it, how to integrate it, how to, keep it tuned up and improve it. And that's, I think where like our team is still transitioning to an AI centric engineering mindset. And I'd love to wave a magic wand where, our CTO like has this much more effective approach when it comes to automations and scalable workflows. And it's not our expertise, but I know it needs to be.
Yeah.
I think that's what's in ultimately, I mean, at the end of the day, like people want to talk to someone. And like it's just like that's really something that, especially with the Xers being, the prevailing decision makers in the workplace, like I think that, you can't duplicate yourself. So
Yeah.
how do you even take 20, 30, 40% of these conversations and say, you have enough information and you could use this chatbot, and then there's workflows that you don't need to talk to us and then in order to finalize something for students. Like I think that's what the big
That makes
magic
sense.
wand would be, making that more efficient.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Just kind of bridging everything together. And I think some people are focused so much on just acquiring more people, but I think it's really the internal systems you guys have right now. That is that's for a lot of businesses to like, I think just making it easier for the people that you have and just increasing the value of your product first would be definitely a really, really good place for a lot of people to actually incorporate AI right now. Now I have two questions for you that'll be a little bit more fun. Like, you look a little tropical right now. You're in the Arizona heat while I'm struggling in -25 temperature up here. But what would be like the one place like you just for people to know Jordan personally? Like what are those two vacation spots for you that you just love to kind of get away for and go to usually?
Good question. I mean, yeah, so so I actually always make this joke that we live on vacation, and then when we go on vacation it's work because we have to like we're still trying to work and then we're managing our kids. So
Yeah.
I think Tucson is such an incredible place. It is just so beautiful. It's so different than anywhere. And so I actually, I'm from New York. I moved out here during COVID because we were like, that doesn't seem to be like the best place to live during a pandemic, even though we obviously didn't know what was going to happen. So I'd recommend for anybody who is curious. I mean, there's something just beautifully different about the desert. I mean, East Coast, you're a stone's throw away from the water most of the time, wherever you are. And like the water is just so big, but it's like really not. It's not like inviting. It's not accessible. Even if you're at the beach, like how far are you gonna go, right? But like the desert, you could go and go and go and go and go into the desert if you're prepared. And it just like you can be like independent. You could be in this environment of calm that is also so lively, moving, and chaotic at the same time. And so I remember the first time I came down, I was like, I'm not going hiking in there. And then basically now it's like, we live amongst animals and cactus and you just like learn how to adapt. Like it's amazing how adaptable humans are. So I would say that's probably the first one for me if like you really want to learn about us and the desert lifestyle. And then, the other man, I mean, we go to New York so often like I always joke, my dad's from Israel. So I always say like going to Israel is like a way to energize yourself and like reconnect with your values. And I feel the same way about New York. I mean, like walking around the city for a few minutes. Wow. Like you get that rush of like, you can literally do anything. You could run into someone that that you've known your whole life without any
Yeah.
plan to do so. Or you could run into someone that could change your life in a second. Like that's very different than that life we live in Arizona, which feels like a vacation, right?
Yeah.
Is like, I'm not, the cactus and I are not going to have a conversation. It's just like I miss that serendipitousness.
Yeah.
I miss like looking around and seeing like people on the train and the hustle bustle and like looking for people I know and saying hi and like that whole like social forward environment. So, it's kind of yin and yang as a difference, but I think that we love to get re-energized going back to New York a lot. Probably about half of our clients are in the on the East Coast in the metro area. So yeah, I mean, we're those are probably the two places that most defined me.
I should have probably guessed with the cactus you got in the background. I should have probably pieced two and two together. But yeah, I guess like yeah, for me honestly, if I get an opportunity, I usually like to get out of North America and kind of just explore somewhere else, like get somewhere warmer. So honestly, for me, Florida, probably Arizona would be a great place for me to come to. So that's definitely on a bucket list item for me as well. I guess my last question for you, man, to wrap up, will be like, what's next for you, like personally, just as a person? Like, I know you're a father first before a CEO, but what's next for you personally? Like, it could be as a leader, business wise, but what do you see yourself doing like 5 or 10 years from now?
My passion is to build community. Like I ultimately CapSource is a community, our community here in Tucson of friends and how we do programming, cooking classes. We'll have like speakers at our house. Like that to us is like so natural and like making that an environment that's fun and accessible and brings in diverse people that you get to meet new people all the time. So like for us, I think that's a big priority. We have a couple of like fun side hustles that I'd love to make more serious. I make this Iraqi mango sauce called Amba. Just have jars of it for us and our friends, bolo ties, us and our friends. But like it would be nice to be able to be more intentional about it. But when you're focused on like real
Wait,
like
so what is that? Is that like a jam or what is it?
So Amba is it's you buy green mangoes that are not ripe yet,
Yeah.
and you pickle them effectively. So you salt water pickle them for a week, and then you mix in all the ingredients. It's like mango curry and apple cider vinegar and that kind of thing. But it's just such a zing, and like it exists all around the Middle East, but it doesn't, it's not it's like actually one of the reasons why I do CapSource and I've always been so motivated is like I love meeting really cool company executives and networking. Like my LinkedIn network is like 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Request I'd love to grow my network. There's no downside to it, right? And so like one of the first companies I ended up in their office, like that was pretty serious was the Sabra CEO, which, was owned by Pepsi. So like we went out to this huge campus and we're pitching them on doing a case with us. And so I just remember it being one of the things we talked about was how they needed to Americanize hummus. Like hummus was not a thing that people ate. It wasn't in the grocery stores. They were just like trying to figure out like you can dip your chips in it. You can dip carrots in it. Like it's kind of like, not salsa, but it's just like so funny to see like
Yeah.
how like Amba kind of needs to go through that type of renaissance in the US to get more attention. So it's just the most unique flavor. Like we put it on. There's a dish called sabiach, which is eggplant and boiled eggs and Israeli salad. You just put a little bit of that, and it's like it transforms you into a different cultural space. Like when you open the jar, it makes the whole room smell. My grandfather used to make it, which is why I make it. And I just remember like the first time I ever made it and like put all the spices in was that the morning that we found out he had passed away. So there's just like intimately
Yes.
deep connection between that sauce and like my family heritage. So, I also think like at the end of the day, when you're like in scale mode of a company, like there's no more creativity anymore. Obviously there is, but it's just very much like you're in your process, you're trying to move things forward.
Yeah.
I always advise to others, like figure out a creative outlet. Whether like I picked up ever since I moved here, and like this is part of what I love about Arizona, space and room for creativity. So I learned how to do cactus gardening, xeriscape. I learned how to do real vegetable gardening. I learned how to do woodworking and create tables and all sorts of interesting things for around the house. And then I got into creating bolo ties and the sauce. And it's like for me, like that, I think everyone should aspire to find a creative outlet
Yeah.
and create the creative space to ultimately produce what you want out of that outlet. Because I think for me, well, I kept getting like stuck. I was in a New York City apartment. You can't really do so much of this stuff there. And so I think like if that's what you want, then you need to figure that out and empower yourself to do it.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Sometimes your location, you don't realize how much of a difference it can make just finding yourself somewhere else. I've seen it literally anytime I go anywhere, I'm like, man, there's a whole another life out there that I've never seen myself do. But listen, Jordan, I appreciate you sharing all this. I want to give you the opportunity as well. Just what would be the best place that people can find you? LinkedIn, website, if you have other social medias as well.
Yeah. So that, I mean, feel free to request on LinkedIn. Check out our website, capsource.io. You can log in and play around with the app if you're interested in exploring how it could work for you as a business professional or as a school educator student. And then otherwise, yeah, I mean, we're on all the socials as a business, and I'm on all the socials personally. So if you're interested in learning more about either, feel free to reach out. We're just humans on a molten rock at the end of the day, and I think that helping each other is like what really matters, right? You gotta help each other along, and then great things happen. I think like that's the butterfly effect. It's like it's so amazing. Like sometimes you forget to chase the wind and see where it goes. Then all the analytics people are like, it's not wind, like, you need KPIs. But I'm like, no, it's like sometimes you just need the things to
Just
get
gotta
out
go with the
there, and
flow,
then
man.
yeah, we'll come back.
Um, No, I appreciate you taking the time today, man. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'm losing my voice, but I appreciate you kind of bearing with me. And I know a lot of people will get value from just hearing about your story and how you've kind of carried yourself, both as a man and as a business owner as well. So I appreciate you taking the time today. And, everybody, I'll drop the links to both their website and Jordan's LinkedIn as well. So feel free to connect with him, and appreciate you taking the time again.
Thank you. Really great to meet you, and really appreciate the what you're doing to spread the message and spread the love.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much. That means a lot. Take care.